gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for April 24th, 2023. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Sony decides to make a shocking sequel. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is as big as a moon, and Miyamoto is promising more Nintendo movies. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Jesse Norris. Jesse, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I just grinded out a review I can finally talk about.
Right this second, you can talk about it. What have you been working on?
Yeah. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. My review is done and dusted and will go live. I actually get to say for once on Wednesday morning at 11 Eastern. So that's when everyone's reviews will go up for that. We're fine. It is very rare we get to actually say when a review goes live. So it's kind of neat. So I said it as a premiere.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's I've been trying to keep my ear to the ground about this game. I'm excited. Wednesday we could find out, but just say blink in Morse code your review score right now. Oh, 69. What the hell? No, you're just messing with me.
69, 420.
It's not a review score. Jesse, how you been doing otherwise?
Very good. I have been mostly just playing Star Wars and waiting on Redfall and dealing with the fallout of one Jeff Grubb over on our forums and Discord.
Not bad. It happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was
I forgive
stupid.
you.
It was mostly just stupid. It was,
yeah.
I
mean, that's mostly the internet. It's just,
yeah. You usually we'll do a podcast and I'll be like, oh, that thing is pretty interesting. That news we broke, that'll be a big deal on Reddit tomorrow, maybe. And then no one cares. And then I think I'm like, no one's going to pick this up. This is just a small detail. And then it's top trending on Reddit. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever.
There's a weird thing around Xbox right now that I've noticed. There's this lust for negative news.
Yeah. Yes.
It's so anything that can be spun that way is just immediately shooting up and engaging.
Well, and it's like because everyone engages with the people that are lusty for the negativity, and then the people who are feeling very anxious are also fighting back against it. And becomes this.
There's this weird undercurrent. As someone who covers that platform a lot, there's always this weird undercurrent of fans who are just really want to make sure that people know they're not biased because they'll crap on the platform as much as they can, and who think their voice really matters because Xbox is one of the platforms that the executives talk to you. You can message them on. I have messaged Phil Spencer and had him respond to me, and it's a very weird thing.
Yep.
Before I had done any of this, it's in that level of access, I think does get some to think, well, if I complain loudly enough, I'm going to get what I want. And so you just get this negative feedback loop where if I crap enough and then something changes, well, I should crap on it more. And it just goes to these ridiculous lengths, and it's not healthy. People shouldn't do that.
Anyway, if people are looking for clarification, I put a video up on my YouTube channel, talk a little bit more about this, try to, say why it was weird it got out of hand, what I was really trying to get to, and hopefully that adds some clarity. A lot of people still just freaking out about it, but at a certain point, wash my hands of it and move on and talk about today's news.
I'll forgive you this time, Jeff.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You know what? I would like to apologize to TheXboxEra. Just TheXboxEra, not anyone else. There you go.
Not
just
Nick.
to you.
Everyone else.
No, yeah. Excluding Nick. Set Nick over there.
If you do something bad to Nintendo, you have to apologize to Nick.
That's right. There we go. That's very true. All right. Let's get into this mess. Before we do, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Okay, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Horizon Forbidden West sequel is in development, Guerrilla says. This comes from Darren Bontheus at GameSpot. Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West developer Guerrilla has confirmed that a new game in the series is in development and will once again star Aloy. In a management update, Guerrilla announced that that studio director and executive producer Angie Smets had taken on the head of development strategy role at PlayStation Studios, and that Smets' previous position will be filled by Joel Eschler, Hella Schmidt, and Jan Bart Van Beek. Smet has served as studio head alongside Beek and Michael Vanderloo, and her departure will see Vanderloo step away from that role to focus on leading technology and strategy for Guerrilla's Decima engine. Here's a quote: "We have full confidence in our new leadership as they steer Guerrilla towards a bright future, expanding the world of Horizon with Aloy's next adventure and our exciting online project." So 2 separate things. Aloy's next adventure was all but written in stone, as the last game, Forbidden West, planted seeds for a threequel throughout its campaign. Obviously, just Jesse, clearly, Horizon is one of those things that Sony is very, very invested in. Everything is Horizon. They are working on this online connected game, which might be separate from what the follow-up to Forbidden West, which is also probably going to be like even bigger, and it's going to probably have all these new modes, including co-op, based on the way things are trending. They're putting a lot of money in this stuff. Obviously, they have a show in the works, so very little surprise, honestly, that here we are. They're promising to make another one of these.
So it is, they're in the we are going to do tons and tons of sequels, and anything that's not Horizon at this point will be the exception, I think, for them moving forward.
Yes. They
popular.
Yeah, very, very popular. They have a popular character. It's kind of a thing that they can really rely on in terms of getting people excited about something. Well, make it Horizon. They did that so much so that their launch game for PlayStation VR 2 was called The Mountain, a Horizon game. So, yeah, and on top of that, one of the key people from Guerrilla is moving up once again to a PlayStation Studio sort of executive level, or vice president level, whatever it is, similar to what Herman Holst has already done. So it's like they want everything over at PlayStation Studios to look a lot like Guerrilla does. And so it's like, yeah, well, that strategy, whatever they're doing, everyone else should be doing, and that, I think that also gives Guerrilla a lot of slack to do whatever they want, which is probably make a lot of Guerrilla or a lot of Horizon games. Excuse me.
Go ahead. It's such a. I enjoyed the first one. I haven't played the second one yet because I was waiting more on PC. My son's got a PS5, so if I really need to play something on there, I could borrow it. But by the same token, there's been too much, so I haven't touched it yet. But I am very interested. I quite like the first one, even with the weird mouth movements and everything that they eventually fixed up. But yeah, it's not my favorite thing that Sony has done, but I think it's been the most consistent, maybe.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, especially now that they've built this sort of track record of these games across, 2 big entries and then a handful of spinoffs, or the VR spinoff, and I think there's some other stuff that they've done. They're promising other things. But they've already also announced like this is like a transmedia project for them. This is going to be everywhere. The show will probably happen. A movie will probably happen eventually. For me, Horizon is, I kind of, my eyes glaze over a little bit, but that's not too surprising. I'm sort of that way with a lot of prestige games, especially out of Sony. Like they just mostly meld into my brain in a way where I'm like, I can barely even see what's happening here, because it looks pretty by the numbers. But it's very expensive by the numbers. So it looks incredible. It has so much going for it in terms of that stuff. And if you want something that just feels more polished than anything else, that's what they're delivering here. So yeah, not too surprising. Although I do wonder, it's like God of War Ragnarok. They're like, hey, we're going to do a 2-parter. And it seemed like, because they were uncertain, like if they can maintain that level through a third game. Horizon, do you think there's like diminishing returns with a Horizon 3 and then a Horizon 4, and then they have to sort of blow it up and do something different by then?
I do, because if they can't change it up the way Assassin's Creed has, because it's just not that, you don't have this whole human history essentially to go through to pull things from. So I do think they're gonna have to find different angles to come at, because you just can't keep going bigger and better in the exact same way. They're gonna have to find another hook to push it every few entries. And also, like, they take a while. They're like 6-7 years per game, so it's probably going to be a while. End of the generation, most likely, if it comes out on PS5. So they'll have some unbelievable graphics and tech going forward. So maybe that's enough to push it for most people. But if they wanted to keep it going for forever, essentially, they're going to have to find different areas. And that's why I think like the more anime uwu style multiplayer thing is even if it's not for me, it's a decent idea to just differentiate it. Because even the PSVR 2 game is very much a VR game, but looking like and feeling like Horizon. So even then, like you've got to find a hook every time. You can't just stay the same.
Yeah, and that's probably a pretty torturous process for game developers that are like, hey, we have something that works. We kind of want to do that again, but we really need to, like, what are we going to take out of here and replace it with something different? And that's a tough thing. That, look at Zelda. It took Zelda a really long time to be comfortable being like, we're going to change things up with Breath of the Wild. Decades worth of entries for that series before it's finally enough to shake things up. It's probably pretty, but maybe Sony's a little bit braver about that stuff because Sony's already seen the success by shaking things up with God of War, and maybe they recognize that, hey, we can do that and we can pull it off, and we have the talent to make that work. So,
and all their games as a service stuff, funding their first party single player being able to try things more, right? That's what they have with Call of Duty and Fortnite. Those just are constant sources of money, so their first party single player games can take their time and go for that prestige title that everyone puts on them.
It is Jim Ryan's virtuous cycle, right? It's the lost leaders of these big expensive games that do make their money back, but they are not exactly like giant profit makers because they are so expensive. So it's like, they're lost leaders, but that gets a lot of people into PS5, and then those people are like, well, in between these big games, I'm gonna go play Fortnite with my friends and spend money on that, and they just it's the loop working for them. All right, let's move on to the next story here. Star Wars Jedi.
This game.
Oh, what's that? Oh yeah, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, huh? Well, yeah. What's going on with that? Physical version is it's still seemingly requires a download. So even if you go to the store, you buy a physical version, you're gonna need to download it. This comes from Joseph Yadin at GameSpot. The physical version of Star Wars Jedi Survivor will seemingly require a download on PS5 and Xbox Series X and S in order to play. This news comes by way of a Reddit thread via VGC from a user who shared an image of the game's box art for PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. On the cover, download required can be seen in the bottom left, indicating that players who buy the physical edition will still need to be connected to the internet, at least at first, to install the rest of the game. This hasn't been officially confirmed, but given Jedi Survivor's massive PC install size of around 155 gigabytes, an additional download would certainly make sense since Blu-ray discs can only store a limited amount of data. It's about 100 gigabytes, right? Like that's the upper limit of like a double layered
PS5
Blu-ray.
So there's like double layer, double-sided, and PS5 can go up. PS5 can go to 100. Series Xbox only goes to 50.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah. Jesus.
So I mean, if you look at the install size for this, it's going to be 3 Xbox Blu-rays or 2 PlayStation Blu-rays, and the real expensive versions for each of them. So they're not going to do that. That's a big number, Jesse. That is big. That's bigger than I was expecting us to be at this point of the generation for a big single player campaign-based game. Now you can't speak to any of the specifics, but I gotta wonder. Like, we do know that, is it public the various sizes of the Xbox Series S versus X versions? Might not have. So if you go on the website, it just says 44 gigabytes.
Okay, for Series S.
For Series S. Someone might have accidentally put out that it was 139 on Series X. I don't know. But I've also seen that it was 147 for PS5. So it's like neither of those are even much smaller than PC.
Right.
And the PC and PS5 ones kill me because that means you need like double the space to actually install them. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. And, PS5, you can go out and you can install your own storage now. But I mean, that base one is 800 and change. Maybe, but no one has that much space because you got other stuff on there. You got your old videos that you've captured and stuff. So that's easy. That's quickly going to be, a third of the space available if you're lucky. If you have nothing else really going on your PlayStation 5. Really, though, this brings me to this thing could never fit on a disc, really. I mean, I guess the Xbox Series S version could, but they're not going to just sell an Xbox Series S version. So this is never going to fit.
Discs.
Yeah, this is never going to fit on a disc. So, is this like the trend? Is this really how maybe physical media dies? Because I suppose maybe people are still gonna be like, no, I'll just go buy the disc and whatever. I got to download something extra, but I always have to download something extra. So they don't change the way they think about it, or do people change the way they think about it because they know the game's not really on the disc? So why does physical media even exist anymore?
This is a bit of an anomaly with just how big it is as a single player only game. It hasn't been. It's been about half this size for the really big ones, and even then, that's bigger than you get on an Xbox disc. That's why most Xbox discs, especially when they were smart delivery focused, or are still, they just don't have anything on them because they can't fit the whole game anyways. So they're just like, well, it's essentially just a digital key. PlayStation more often has the actual disc because they'll do PS4 and PS5 releases instead of trying to get both in one. So I think eventually, yeah, especially if we're already hitting this big again on this gen, I can speak more to why I think this one is that size in a couple days. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, looking at the very least, Xbox Series S versus Xbox Series X, 44 gigabytes versus 137 was whatever, like 39. Okay, yeah. I mean, that's almost 100 gigabytes difference just between this. What is basically they're going to be the same game, but the 4K textures are. I mean, that's got to be it. I mean, it's hard to think of any other explanation.
And I have no idea, but that's what. Whenever people talk about why some things are so much bigger, especially with like when the One X and the PS4 Pro hit, and then you started getting 4K texture packs and having 4K texture packs on PC. That's normally the thing people talk about when they say, well, this version's bigger. It's textures because everything else is just the same. So, and they don't need to do redundancy when has to be installed. So that's going to be smaller. So if it's even bigger, that means there's some big ass textures.
Yep. That's what it sounds like. Big ass textures. The bats, that's what a bat file is a big ass texture. Yeah, and then I guess, what happened in the old days is like a game was this big, they would just put it on multiple discs, but the days of multiple discs, for the most part, I think maybe some rare exceptions, is mostly going to be over because they're happy to just move you over to digital. Just download it.
Yep.
Just download it. We're going to save money not shipping you multiple discs. It's a quarter, but whatever. It's a dime. Still, though, all that counts. We really care about every nickel and dime. And then on top of that, you are less likely to sell a game used if it's just a digital download. So we want you there anyhow.
Yep.
I mean, obviously you're not going to sell it at all, but it's like if you're more likely to get a game as a digital download, you're less likely to get that physical version, and that physical version can just kind of slowly phase out over time. It just feels like this is another step on that, that walk towards the all digital future. Which I mean, let me ask you, do you think when we get a new generation of consoles, and however long that takes, do they have disk drives?
There's a small chance. If they do, it'll probably be like that one that's been rumored with the PlayStation 5 that's detachable. That would seemingly make the most sense, where by default it's digital. If you want to spend more, you can get a disk drive type of thing.
Yep. I think that's probably right. They'll probably have that detachable thing, and that'll be how they do it, which would be weird. All right, let's move on. The Super Mario Brothers movie is now at $871 million globally. And it's quickly closing in on 1 billion. Eventually, wake me up when it gets to 1 billion, right? From Nintendo, this comes from Nintendo Everything. According to a new report from Variety, the Super Mario Brothers movie has now reached that $871 million at the global box office. That it's expected to become the first film this year to hit 1 billion. It'll probably do that in the next 2 weeks or so, maybe a little bit longer. The Super Mario Brothers movie took home 58.23 at the domestic box office this weekend. That's probably million, not $58. You can add another 70 million from international showings. The Super Mario Brothers movie currently stands at having earned 434.33 million in North America. Overseas, it has generated 437.5 million. Currently, the movie is the biggest film of the year at the global, domestic, and international box office. It's really big. It is. It had the 5th best, or something like maybe the 7th best third weekend of any movie ever. It's number 1 for animated movies, and no animated movie has ever made this much in its third weekend. If you take out like holiday weekends, it's actually the 4th biggest third weekend ever. It's just making a ton of money. I took my family to go see it on Sunday, and the theater was pretty full, and like it was an afternoon showing. So it's clearly still rolling. This thing is it's probably going to be the number 1 top grossing movie of the year. It's hard to see anything else kind of coming along, especially with sort of, the slowdown of Marvel movies and things like that. But I don't know. I would not have predicted that before this movie came out. How about you?
I had a feeling. I don't know. It's so good looking, and it's such it's like the biggest video game IP that can hit, because it can hit us old people that grew up with it. It can hit, it's never stopped coming out. So it's like through every generation of people in video games, there's always been a huge Mario game. And then kids just like big dumb fun. And that's what I saw it as a not huge Mario fan. Like, I got all the references, but they didn't hit super hard for me, but they're cool. And I get that, like, even if you're not into the very light kids story that it essentially is, the hero's journey, you know, paint by numbers story, essentially, it's got the music, it's got the references, and for that IP, it just works. I don't think it's going to work for most video games the same way, because how many video games are Mario? Like,
no, yeah,
0.
Yep. I think I do think there's some success in the Illumination Nintendo mashup. That partnership, I think, really helps for this, where it's like, no, it clearly is a kids movie. It looks really good, and I think they can have not this similar success in terms of this level, but they can have similar pops for anything that they sort of pull out of the Nintendo universe, with the exception of like Zelda might be really weird if they try to do something like that. If they try to do anything that has an audience that definitely skews slightly older at the, you know, Zelda's not that much older, but it's like just slightly, people that are coming to Zelda want a certain characterization that I don't think Illumination could deliver. But you know, I would love a Pikmin movie. I would love Luigi's Mansion, all these other things that they're almost certainly going to do.
Luigi's Mansion felt very heavily hinted at.
Yes, they did a bit about that with the they had a flashlight in the spooky woods. It honestly looked like the cover of Luigi's Mansion. So yeah, I think that they are probably going in that direction here very quickly. I would love that. That'd be great. My kids did lose their mind. They really were bouncing up and down every time someone said "Mamma Mia." Addie out loud would just go, "Mamma Mia!" It was really funny. It was like, okay, kid, calm down. I don't know if you're allowed to say that. All right. Don't
let John Leguizamo hear you.
Yes, exactly. John's gonna get upset with you, kiddo. Miyamoto drops future Nintendo movie hints. Meanwhile, this comes from Andy Robinson at VGC. Nintendo's Shigeru Miyamoto has suggested that the company is planning its next movie adaptation following the hugely successful performance of the Super Mario Brothers movie. The gaming giant has made no secret of its desire to create more video content in the future and has established a company division to handle such endeavors. Speaking in a Japanese interview with Nikkei this week, which was translated by VGC, shoutouts to you guys, Mario designer Miyamoto hinted that the company's next movie adaptation could focus on different Nintendo characters. "Please keep an eye on our next production," Miyamoto said. "This time Mario was the focus, but Nintendo is like a talent agency. We have many other entertainers on our roster." Which I think is an interesting way to put it, but it's also probably the right way to be like, hey, we're gonna get our entertainers paid. We're gonna make sure we represent them correctly. Also, I think that's probably the right role for Miyamoto, is making sure that these characters that he had at least a hand in, if not outright responsible for creating, get treated correctly, and continues to be the conduit between Nintendo and Hollywood or Illumination.
Kind of goes with his like original pitch for Mario being a roadshow, and they're all actors, and they're like, he's like their agent.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Right. Yeah. They're putting on the show. Super Mario Brothers 3, the curtain's pulling up, and if you have the right seat, you could see Miyamoto over the side, like making deals happen. He's going to get his people paid.
He's got 3 cell phones going at once.
Yes. He's trying to all weird perverts in the porn industry trying to get Birdo to come make movies. No, Birdo is pure. We're gonna keep Birdo pure. I've seen some stuff on the internet though.
You can find anything.
So not too surprising here. Do you think Miyamoto, like, since the money is obviously huge, do you think like Miyamoto's like his ideas have changed about what they're going to do, or was he like always pretty much ready to go with like, hey, I have this movie ready and this movie ready, or what?
The way he's always handled all these properties, I imagine he's got a very good idea of exactly what he wants, and that's all he'll do pretty much.
Yeah. Before we move on from the Super Mario Brothers movie, the one thing I did notice on the second watch is that his family's, at least his dad, I think, is done by Charles Martinet, and it's like, people before the movie were like, you can't have Charles Martinet. You don't want 2 hours of that awful accent. Like, it'll be so annoying. And then you watch the movie, and Charles Martinet just is a voice actor, so he can do this entire range. and he just does a character that would have been totally fine if that was the Mario voice. Like it was like this concern that people just made up in their brains. Like, well, you just can't have that for 2 hours.
The concern is you think, oh, if you're getting him, he's going to do the Mario voice. And yes, the Mario voice for 2 hours would have been annoying.
Yes, exactly. But it's like Charles Martinet is a voice actor, so he's capable of doing other things.
Hollywood, they will always go for the name.
Oh, that's completely aside the point. Right. Hollywood was always going to do that, but people making the excuse.
Somebody needs to use Cameo and pay Charles Martinet to redub the entire movie.
I would like that. Hey, now Chris Pratt, he did fine. He did fine.
Yeah, he
did not get in the way of the movie at all. So whatever. But Charles Martinet is my boy, and I was like, when he was doing that, we saw actually that was the one part of the movie where I actually kind of got a little emotional just hearing Charles Martinet being in a movie acting. I'm like, oh, that rules. That's awesome.
I've known him since he was Charles Martinet.
That's right. Am I saying it wrong? Whatever.
I have no idea. I was just making a dumb joke.
All right. Let's get to this next one. FTC reportedly wants info from Nintendo on Call of Duty deal. This comes from Alana Higgs at Nintendo Life. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission is attempting to get more information from Nintendo regarding the 10-year licensing deal it signed with Microsoft to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo platforms. In a report published by Tweaktown, the FTC apparently subpoenaed, and then they explain this story. They explain what a subpoena is, which I find it unreasonable because most Nintendo fans have probably been subpoenaed by Nintendo at this point. But
it's a badge of honor. If you haven't been, are you really a Nintendo fan?
Exactly. Nintendo of America's Vice President of Publisher and Developer Relations, Steve Singer, after learning that Singer was responsible for the discussions between Nintendo and Microsoft, the FTC subpoenaed him, blah, blah, blah. The FTC reportedly wants the executive to stand and give a testimony for up to 7 hours. While this is related to the Microsoft Activision merger, the details of this specific subpoena were directly related to the deal between Nintendo and Microsoft, which was struck on the 6th of December, 2022. So we have another story coming up here pretty soon, but right after this about what's happening in the UK. So it's like all the attention here is going to focus back over on the FTC, which is taking a little bit longer to get a lot of these things lined up. I'm wondering why they feel the need to have someone testify when they could just get the paperwork. Do you think FTC is still real serious about maybe standing in the way of this deal?
Oh, they've made it very clear that's all they want to do is stand in the way of these deals, and they keep your headset. They keep losing. They've lost 9 straight court cases. Just lost another one against Axon. They're not in the business of trying to actually win or stop anything. They're in the business of trying to really annoy companies into maybe giving up, which isn't going to happen most of the time.
Yeah.
And I know people say, oh, they spent so much money, $500 million they wanted, and she was getting grilled at Congress over it. And it's like, well, compared to the defense budget, that's nothing. But I get it. It still is a lot of money in the long run for us normal people and not government employees. But I don't know. Their entire strategy, I get. The big business mergers were too easy. They let them do too much. The problem is they let the laws change and they set precedent. And you need to change that and change precedent the right way. Otherwise, you just keep losing. And instead of actually trying to figure out the right way to fight big business consolidation in ways that they think they need to, they're just firing every bullet they can desperately to just annoy. They're like gnats flying around a cow. It just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, that is the strategy, is to be annoying. That is because that's what they're left with after. This is centuries old now, a century old, of the way that, the Supreme Court has said, hey, that is how we view antitrust laws, is that, hey, unless if it's got to really hurt the consumer. It has to hurt the consumer for us to really care about it. And the FTC is kind of stuck in a situation where it's hard to prove that in many of these cases. And so they're like, okay, well, we still think that this would be bad overall, specifically for competition for smaller businesses to try to compete against these things. And, in video games, I think that's really hard to argue, but whatever. They see that happening in other industries. They're trying to apply that here. And then they have nothing to work with. They have no tools really in there, except for these being annoying.
Because with the UK and the CMA, they were originally like, well, is this going to foreclose PlayStation? And no, it's not going to do that. And so they dropped that part of it, which was surprising to people because the CMA doesn't always do that. But so everything just shifted to the cloud, which is why you see nonstop cloud deals, including this Nintendo stuff, as part of all that just barrage of, hey, we know what you guys are going to go after. So at that point, it's just what are you actually going after? What do you think the negative of this deal is? And they have never articulated that. It's just been, well, we just want to stop it. It's very much Jim Ryan-esque, where I don't want to deal, I just want to stop. And using his talking points hurt the CMA's initial argument, and they had to completely pivot and backtrack. But the FTC is just full in, pretty much sounding like, well, their main competition doesn't want them to do it, so we're gonna use that to keep fighting, because we, in principle, just don't want them to do it. And then you've got all the Congress people coming out saying, well, hey, that's a Japanese company versus an American company. Why are you just taking the Japanese company's word over the American company? And then it becomes this whole nationalistic thing, and you lose on that angle too,
in a whole other way. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. I do wonder, like, they're going to bring this Nintendo executive to testify, and it's always weird. Like, a Nintendo executive could always be like, "No, we don't compete with these other companies. We're in our own zone. We are Nintendo, and they are video games." And it's like, okay, well, that's not exactly true. But I wonder if they expect something like that so they can continue to argue that Nintendo is a different thing than PlayStation and Xbox. I had another question I wanted to ask you, but it slipped my mind. I think I'll come back to it if I can think of it. But let's move on for now. Oh no, I remembered it. Do you think Jim Ryan has tried to contact Joe Biden?
I mean, they look pretty similar. He could be he could be his uncle. So
right. Do you he tried to find out which Amtrak Joe Biden rides to the whatever. I don't think he takes Amtrak anymore now he's president, but he used to take Amtrak all the time. And he's like, oh, it was funny running into you here. I'd like to talk to you about high-end video game consoles.
Pager about 30 times, just constant messages. Hey, what you doing? Using all the old text to
I hope
the old text codes. He definitely was all in with their lawyers were all in with FTC and CMA. But even if you talk to Joe Biden, I imagine it's probably he doesn't remember it 20 minutes later, so it's not worth it.
That's fair. That's very true. Now, Sevward says Hunter Biden had Call of Duty installed on that laptop, and that made me laugh. That's just stupid. Okay, we are moving on now. Yes. UK CMA expected to approve Xbox's Activision Blizzard deal this week. This comes from Fraser Gilbert at Pure Xbox. It's a big week for Microsoft's attempted acquisition of Activision Blizzard, as the UK's Competition and Markets Authority is set to make its final decision on whether to approve the takeover by this Wednesday, April 26th. Ahead of that date, the Financial Times is reporting that the CMA is expected to vote in favor of the deal. Here's the quote from the Financial Times. Microsoft will also have an eye on the UK, where on Wednesday, the Competition and Markets Authority is due to finally rule on whether to block the technology company's $69 billion takeover of game maker Activision Blizzard. Although this is likely to prove a damp squib, as the CMA is expected to support it. I don't know what a damp squib is. I'm sorry.
It's just not a big deal.
Okay.
It's just a squib is the blood packs that blow up in movies.
Yeah, is that okay?
It would just be a little, instead of blowing up, it'd just be it just oozed.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a metaphor, but I like it.
Squib is probably something very different in the UK where they're using
honest, that's what I'm like. Yeah, I knew it. Yeah, squib and movie, but I like yours. I hope that's what they mean, because that's actually.
I wonder if that's why squib from movies came from, but it's pretty. Oh, it's a firework. So a firework that was wet and then it doesn't go off correctly.
That makes sense. All right, very, very. That makes a lot more sense. Yeah, this seems to be the direction that the UK is heading in, because they've already stated flat out, we have dropped our issue with the console market space, the big one that PlayStation was bringing up. That was and that we were the forefront of listening to Sony and bringing their concerns to the table. The CMA was. Now the CMA is we brought their concerns to the table, and every question we've asked about it from everyone else involved, including Microsoft and all these other players in the field, has satisfactorily answered those concerns. Now we're left with, hey, we're still worried about cloud, but like you said, one cloud deal after the other.
They will gladly sign every deal handed to them. Hey, you got 300 people that use you. You want all our games? Feel free.
Yep. So Wednesday we should hear it. This is kind of the timeline that they've mostly been on, but it might be a little bit early. And then it's really going to come back to. The EU. The EU's already signaled that they're mostly coming through with this. They
delayed themselves, it seemed, so that CMA could go first. And once the CMA is done, they probably won't be that long after. I don't think it'll be all the way to May. You never know.
Yes, and then it comes back to the FTC, which does. They've already set a date for October, way after all this other stuff. So
yeah, and Microsoft was like, "Well, we will close if it passes with the EU and CMA."
Yep. So looking forward to maybe getting past some of this, although no guarantee that we're going to stop talking about it.
Stop. The FTC will make sure it's in the news here and there for a while. Hopefully it's just more actual things so I think recently it's been fine, but we had those months where it just kept coming up with vague things and we couldn't really tell, but then we started getting actual info and it was interesting. So if it's just hits of actual information again, it won't be that bad. If it's weird vague shit that we don't really get much out of, that was when it was boring.
Yep, agreed. All right, Blizzard is allegedly creating crisis maps due to losing so many developers from Ben Leon at Game Reactor. It's no secret that Blizzard Entertainment is a shred of the developer that it once was. Various legal issues and culture problems that have been poorly handled from an executive level have come to light over the last few years and have ravaged the company to the point where developers have been leaving in droves. And the way that Blizzard isn't tackling this issue has caused its current developers to become frustrated, as is the case with World of Warcraft producer Adam Galaxagrave and senior game designer Allison Steele. The former took to Twitter to state, "Being loud about it because I've lost yet another person this week. Blizzard is losing amazing talent because someone in power doesn't listen to the game directors who make his products. DE&I, which is like, the equality and diverse hiring practices, also means diversity of thought, especially when it's backed by data and financials." I don't know what homie's trying to say there. Like, we need to have a diversity of thought. Is that someone leaving because they weren't allowed to say that they listened to Fox News or something? I have no idea. But
funny you bring up Fox News.
Uh-oh.
They just fired Tucker Carlson.
What? Really?
I
wonder if that was like a secret part of the deal, a secret part of that settlement, where it's like a few weeks later you're going to have to cancel them. Well, hey, you know what? So
many people talking about it on Twitter right now.
Proud to be a fucking American right now. Let's fucking go. He's going to just fail upward, everybody. That's how he's always done it. And so but for now, dance on that fucking grave. Eat shit.
Even though we get rid of Bobby Kotick, he's going to get like a friggin' $500 million.
Bobby Kotick's going to be president. Yeah, he's going to be president, like for sure. Like it's inevitable. But here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fucking eat ass, you fucking loser. Okay, sorry.
Wants and dinners. Never eat them.
Glaxgrave continued a little further to add, "I just want to make video games. I want to make amazing bestsellers that are critically acclaimed. I want to make better Dragonflights. I want to make better experiences. Can't do that if we get rid of everyone who made it. Last thought, some talent is undermining the point." Someone else came along, I think it was Steele came along eventually and said, "Forced to return to office has cost us some amazing people and will continue to cost us more in the coming months. It is a terrible, short-sighted, self-destructive policy that is only weakening our ability to deliver the kind of game we want to make and our players deserve." So I do have trouble following what Glaxagrave is trying to say, although I understand the problem of not enough people to make a game. That's okay. Still saying like the return to office policy has caused some people to be like, I could just go work anywhere else. And the culture here is not some attractive thing. In fact, it's kind of repelling. So this continues to be the big issue for Activision and Blizzard, where they need a lot of people, a lot of very talented people to make their games, and they are struggling to hire. And they were probably struggling to hire because there's just not a lot of talent out there to be had, because there's so much demand for it already. And then on top of that, people kind of don't want to work for this company still. And Blizzard and Activision have done nothing to address that. And that's kind of where I'm like, well, hopefully Xbox can, but at the very least, it probably can't get worse than what it's like right now, right?
I wouldn't be shocked like Activision and Blizzard aren't addressing it because they're just focused on selling, getting their money, and getting fired and fucking off. So they're not going to worry about it. It's probably very much in just a status quo mode, but that ignores the fact that companies are trying to put the genie back in the bottle of working from home, where people are like, man, I like working at my house. I like remote work. I don't want to go back in. So if you refuse to offer that, and I get it, because sometimes certain things just work better in person, but working better in person doesn't matter if you don't have people to actually do that work. So you got to figure out, is it worth trying to force it? Probably not, if everyone is just leaving.
Exactly. It's like, do you have, they're working remotely introduces problems. It's worth trying to solve those problems as they stand, instead of just being like, well, instead we'll just go to the office, because that's going to introduce a whole new problems that are more fundamental of people are going to go work somewhere else. And that's just something that these companies have already had problem with, and now it's getting worse, it seems like. All right. Next story here. Blizzard's departure from China could cost it $44 million thanks to a NetEase lawsuit.
Uh-oh.
This comes from Darren Bonthus at GameSpot. Blizzard and NetEase ended a 14-year partnership earlier this year. The pact had allowed the U.S. publisher and developer to release its games inside of China. While both sides have blamed each other for the breakup, the divorce just got a bit messier as NetEase is now suing Blizzard for $43.5 million for a wide number of claims. According to the lawsuit, that was first reported by Sina Technology. NetEase claims that Blizzard had promised refunds to more than 1 million players who wanted them when the Chinese servers went offline for Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch, StarCraft, and Heroes of the Storm on January 23rd. But this task fell to NetEase. The company is also seeking compensation for unsold merchandise inventory and claims that Blizzard violated licensing agreements and demands redress for unequal provisions because of those violations. Lastly, the lawsuit mentions overlord clauses between NetEase and Blizzard. The deal required NetEase to pay a sizable deposit in advance for several of Blizzard's games, but Blizzard did not refund the company when these were not developed. As noted by PC Gamer, the wording of this deal could involve other products for Chinese consumers, such as existing products being retooled to pass the notoriously strict registration rules of that market. This was a messy breakup. We've heard before that it's because maybe possibly mistranslations and Bobby Kotick feeling threatened by them and like being like, F you, I'm taking my ball and going home. It's another wild, like, this is weird because like this is a wild move to have done earlier this year when they are in this deal with Microsoft and they probably didn't want to rock the boat much. But honestly, maybe blowing up a deal with China is something Microsoft's not too upset by. It's like, yeah, let us negotiate that on our own terms later. That's fine. Instead of like having to adopt whatever deal you've already left here. But in the meantime, it does sound like on the way out the door a little bit, Activision was kind of messing up the house and just be like, hey, screw you, sue us if you want. And now
it was enough to get him to beat up a really nice looking giant statue with sledgehammers. So,
yeah, what was it like a big World of Warcraft statue, right? And they just they took sledgehammers to it. I like that video.
Very cathartic. Very messy.
Yes.
Very, very, very messy. So very Bobby Kotick. Very messy and very stupid.
Yes, very stupid and messy. Yes, the way we like it on a Monday. Next story, Keiji Inafune is the producer of Level 5's new Fantasy Life game on Switch. I just thought this was interesting and worth calling out. This comes from Liam Doolin at Nintendo Life. Apart from the initial reveal, we don't yet know all that much about Level 5's next Fantasy Life entry coming to the Nintendo Switch at some point this year. However, there's been a surprising discovery made about this new entry in the RPG simulation series. Japanese publication Famitsu has revealed that Keiji Inafune is the producer of Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time. Best known for Mega Man and in more recent years, the Kickstarter project Mighty No. 9, along with the successful Azure Striker Gunvolt series, Inafune is one of the talents behind this upcoming release. Level 5 CEO and former Fantasy Life producer Akihiro Hino elaborated on this, mentioning how Inafune, quote, has the ability to bring people together and that he's created not only a new crafting system with the new creative team at his disposal, but, quote, even went as far as to create a whole new life, too. What does that mean?
They have a baby?
Did they
do some animal husbandry?
A little bit of cloning, maybe? Yeah, I don't know. Shit. Is this a secret Metal Gear game? What's going on here? Honestly, I'm just like, Keiji Inafune had that like rough patch with Mighty No. 9, and it's just like
he made a robot.
A robot. He's probably made a robot. That's probably what it is. It's brought Chat GPT-4 technology to a farming game. That makes a lot of sense. Yes. So I'm just glad Keiji Inafune is finding work. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, oh yeah, you got a steady gig. Hell yeah, dude. That rules. I like that. You're gonna go make a game. You're gonna go make someone else's game. Like, that's cool. Yeah, just make that happen. It is the better path than, let's say, Yuji Naka doing some insider trading. Like, don't do that. Do this instead. Go make a Fantasy Life. Good for you.
Just don't make it Balan Wonderland or whatever. Wonderworld. I never remember.
No one cares. Is the thing. That's the biggest thing with that, is because we're never ever going to see that game ever anywhere.
PlayStation Plus. Very
That's
sad.
A shame. Where's my copy's up there on top of the thing.
You have a book?
Yeah, I got the digital version. I got the ebook. Yeah, I tried to read it and then I died because it's so boring. You got to
spend some good money to get that actually bound as a physical copy.
That's a good idea. Take it to Kinko's and just let them go to town on it. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Amazon will do it.
Yeah, is it legal? I guess if I do it for my own personal use, I could probably do it,
you don't
right?
resell it. Yeah, as long as you're not making any money, you're not giving it away, you're doing it for yourself.
Probably a little bit of copyright infringement, just like the diet version. Yeah, I'm okay with that. All right, let's see here. Finally, Dead Island 2 leads all new top 3 UK box charts for physical sales last week. This comes from Christopher Dring at gamesindustry.biz. Shout out to Dring. Sales of boxed video games dropped 6% in the UK week on week, despite the release of 3 new titles. The best-selling new release was Dead Island 2 by Deep Silver. And brace your butts for this a little bit. This surprised me, this story, which shuffles to the top of the UK box charts. It is the 3rd biggest game release of the year, behind Hogwarts Legacy and Resident Evil 4. It sold roughly half of what Resident Evil 4 managed, but significantly better than Dead Space. We won't know how the game compares to the original until the digital data is released later this week, excuse me. What the fuck? I'm sorry, what?
People like zombie. People really like unbelievably over-the-top realistic gore.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, once again, I've underestimated the zombie audience. That audience single-handedly turned a pretty crappy show of The Walking Dead into like this mega thing with like 4 spinoffs and just 11 seasons. And it's like, okay, you got to recognize they're out there and they want that content, and anything that's going to give it to them, they're going to support. And here we are, Dead Island 2, an okay game that I think it's pretty fun. Just crushing, just demolishing. I mean, obviously not Resident Evil 4 numbers, but if it was never going to do that, but like being better than Dead Space, that is, I just really have a hard time.
That's crazy to me. I might have been one of the crazy people that gave Dead Island an 8.5. I freaking loved it. I'm playing through it again in co-op with the missus. But I did give Dead Space a 10 because that remake was pretty much perfect to me. I friggin' loved it. I'm very sad it didn't do better, but I'm happy Dead Island 2 is doing well at least. And I'm not shocked at all that I see Minecraft Legends on that list, because anything Minecraft, my God, it's like the zombies of, they have creepers. So there you go.
Yes, basically a zombie game. Yes, that's right. Coming in second place is Minecraft Legends. The physical game sold best on Nintendo Switch, which accounted for 76% of its sales. Not only is digital data missing from these figures, but Minecraft Legends, which is published by Microsoft, is a part of Xbox Game Pass as well. So got to keep that in mind as having an effect on sales. The PlayStation version accounted for 19% of box sales, with the remaining 5% on Xbox. Just missing out on second place is Advanced Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp on Nintendo Switch, although the game came in number 2 for single format chart. This game was destined to be a tough sell. It's the first game in the series in 15 years. It was initially due early last year, but was postponed following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. When it finally has arrived, it's launching into a tough market, and just a few weeks before the big new Nintendo game, Tears of the Kingdom. As a result, it's no surprise it hasn't done huge figures, but it has found an audience following positive reviews last week. Then Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at number 4, FIFA 23 is 5. Yeah, I mean, Mario Kart, of course, right?
Mario back.
Yep, Super Mario Odyssey at 6. Then Hogwarts Legacy, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Minecraft Switch, and then God of War Ragnarok. Apparently every game on this chart was down week over week, except for there was 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 at number 38 and Kirby and the Forgotten Land at number 31. Those are the only ones to see week over week increases. So fair enough. All right. You know what? I'm going to bring up the poll. Let's get that over here.
We can do that on Twitch.
You know what? Now I can. I've gotten special permission now that what's his name is gone from CEO. Let's see here. Bringing it up. Which game would sell better? Eternal Darkness Remake or Soul Reaver Remake? What's your guess? Which one would you choose?
Well, I feel the power of Timur Hussein coming through on here, and I agree. I think I chose Soul Reaver in this. So
62.1% say Soul Reaver, 37.9% say Eternal Darkness. Mike said I was overestimating Eternal Darkness, and I think he's right. But I think everyone else is overestimating Soul Reaver too.
I don't think either one would sell great. I just think it would sell more than that
exactly. Yes, maybe that's what it is. I think, honestly, though, I would still like to see both these things happen. Let's go.
Yeah, I like games.
I'm going to write up the new poll, the one that we're going to get to on Wednesday. In the meantime, though, Jesse, why don't you tell people what you have going on, remind them about your review coming out on Wednesday and all that good stuff.
Yep, got a review coming out for Star Wars Jedi Survivor Wednesday at 11, as 99,000 people on Twitter posted at the exact same time. So we are youtube.com/XboxEra. You go to xboxera.com. All of our links are there. I changed my streaming over to YouTube because Twitch decided to do a 70-30 split last month for no reason, so I'm just sick of them. But yeah, xboxera.com. That's where you can find everything we do. We got a forum there where we try real hard to get him to stop yelling about Jeff Grubb and how much he hates Xbox, and it's good. I think overall our community is good, especially our Discord is very good. Discord.gg/XboxEra. It's open, and I've got a lot of good emojis, even if you never talk.
I want to do the question I want to do is, do you still buy physical games if the disc doesn't actually have the game on it? I'm trying to think what should the choices be? I always buy the disc. It depends on the game.
No. What Tucker Carlson tweet in chat?
Just get digital.
Is that actually him?
Oh boy.
I think somebody might have hacked his account because it says the bitches set me up. It is his account. 6 million followers.
Oh, what a way to go down. Fucking A. Let's fucking go. This is a great start to the week, everybody. That whole like meltdown on Twitter with the deverification stuff was so much fun. Them trying to give the badge to Drill, and Drill kept changing his name. And it's like, wait, is Drill gonna sue Twitter because of like false endorsement, all this stuff? Like he could and probably would win. It was wild. And then I'm like, okay, well that's over. Things will go, kind of like calm down. And then this happens. All right, I'm very excited. Okay,
it's funny because Drill is exactly what Elon Musk wants to be. So bad. He so badly wants for people to just think he's really witty and funny. And
they want him to think. He wants people to think that he's a poster when like Drill, but in reality, he is just an angry reply guy. That's all Elon is. A guy that goes, "Oh, that's interesting. Oh, looking into that." Oh, sucks. All right. We got the new poll up. Who knows if these choices are any good? My brain stopped working several minutes ago. Do you still buy physical games if the disc doesn't actually have the game on it? I always buy the disc. It depends on the game. No, I'll just get digital. Let me know your response. If you got to put something in a reply, make it happen. That's fine. We'll get to this on giantbomb.com on Wednesday on the next Game This Morning. In the meantime, on this site, tomorrow we're going to have a new Bombcast. Please tune in. I'm very excited about it. We'll have good stuff to talk about. We will hopefully have a quick look going up of Star Wars, if we can make that happen. If we can get a code, we'll see. And then the normal stuff. Blight Club. We'll have Game This Mornings throughout the rest of the week. We will have Connectivity Compadres. There it is. We're trying to think of the name of my own feature. All that good stuff. And then I'm hoping to do a handful of other quick looks this week. There's a lot of games that we're like kind of behind on. Oh, let me get out of here. We'll try to catch
too many games.
There's too many. There's just way.
And there's just the next 2 months are even worse. It's impossible to keep up.
It has gotten out of hand. Absolutely. All right, Jesse, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games. I really appreciate it, man.
Hey, thank you for having me. It is always a pleasure to be here.
And everybody else, you're the best audience in gaming. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself. And the bitches set me up.